Story 1. The gas station had no door, but I was already inside. This happened to me in 2018, somewhere outside of Flagstaff, Arizona. I was driving through the desert late at night. Not for fun. I had taken a last-minute detour on my way back from a job in Los Angeles. Something about the interstate traffic didn't sit right with me, so I followed a string of rural highways and faded green signs, trusting Google Maps and my own stubbornness. It was about 3:15 a.m. when I noticed the gas gauge drop. Not low but empty, no warning light, just dropped straight to the bottom like it had never been full. I blinked and looked again. I'd just filled up maybe 45 minutes earlier, right before I left the last town. I checked the dashboard, no leaks, no warning signs. The tank read empty, but the car kept moving. I started scanning the road for anything, a light, a billboard, a turnoff. About a mile later, as if it had always been there, I saw a glowing red sign that said Gas 24 HRS. I pulled in without hesitation. The station was small and boxy, the kind of place built in the 70s and never remodeled. Fluorescent lights flickered behind grime-streaked windows. There were no other cars, no one at the pumps. I stepped out, half expecting the smell of fuel, but the air was bone dry. I stood for a second, just listening. The wind had stopped. I went inside. There was a bell above the door, but it didn't ring. The inside was quiet. Too quiet. One cooler hummed weakly in the corner, and a yellowed clock above the register read 3:15. I took a breath. That same time. The one from when I looked at my gauge. It hadn't changed. I checked my phone. 3:15. I opened the Maps app. It wouldn't load. I tried again. No signal. The screen locked itself, and when I tapped it, nothing. The battery showed 1%, then blinked out. I looked back through the window. My car was still idling outside, headlights on, but I saw something strange. The driver's seat wasn't empty. There was someone sitting in it. No, not someone. Me. Same shirt, same posture, same hands on the wheel. I froze. I was inside the store, but I was also still in the car. I looked away, then back again. Still me. I couldn't tell if I was breathing. The version of me in the car never moved. The engine kept running, the exhaust drifting weakly into the night. I turned back toward the register. No one was there. The shelves were stocked, but with products I didn't recognize. Old brands, like they hadn't been updated in years. Sun-bleached candy bars, bottles with labels that didn't look quite right. All the packaging had tiny details wrong, spelling errors, unfamiliar logos. The silence in that place wasn't peaceful. It was thick, like sound didn't belong there. I reached for a water bottle just to feel something real. As I grabbed it, I noticed the refrigerator door didn't resist me. It felt hollow. The water was warm. I set it down and walked to the bathroom. The hallway stretched farther than it looked from outside. One door. Employees only. I tried the handle. Unlocked. Inside was a narrow utility room with a desk, a lamp, and a mirror mounted too low on the wall. I checked my reflection, but it wasn't there. Just the wall behind me, the desk, the doorway. I wasn't in it. I stepped back. Still nothing. My heart was pounding now. I turned to leave and something caught my eye. A black and white photo pinned to the corkboard above the desk. It showed the front of this same gas station. Same pumps. Same sign. Only this time the parking lot was full of cars, and in the center of the photo there was a man standing outside. Same clothes, same face. Me, but older. I backed out of the room and walked fast, not quite running, toward the front. When I got there, the windows were black. Not dark, black like someone had painted them from the outside. I reached for the door. There wasn't one. I looked again. There was no exit, just a blank wall where the door had been, smooth, unbroken drywall. The bell never rang because there had never been a bell. I checked the window again. My car was still out there, still running, still with me inside, but I couldn't remember the drive. I couldn't remember the last place I stopped. I couldn't even remember the road that brought me here. My hands started to shake. I turned back toward the counter and said out loud, just to break the silence, "Hello?" Something answered. Not a word, just a quiet knock from the inside of the refrigerator. I don't remember how long I stood there. Eventually I moved, not toward the fridge, but toward the counter where I thought I'd heard something. A voice just under the hum of the lights. Not a voice I recognized, but familiar. "You always stop here, even when you say you won't." I froze. There was no one behind the register, just a mirror on the back wall next to the cigarettes and scratch tickets. I stepped forward, expecting to see my face, but it wasn't there. What I saw was the parking lot. My car, still idling, still with me in it. The glass reflected nothing inside the store, just the outside. The mirror worked like a window, but only in reverse. I looked again. The figure in the car hadn't moved, but the lights had changed. They were dimmer now, like dawn was creeping in, even though the sky was still pitch black through the real windows, or where they used to be. I walked around the counter. The register was an old mechanical one. It looked decades out of place. I pressed a button, and the drawer opened with a harsh metal clang. Empty, no coins, no bills, just a worn slip of paper, folded 4 times. I opened it. It was a receipt, printed faintly. Date, June 11th, 2018. Same day. My name was at the top somehow. No amount, just a line at the bottom that said, "Returned, 3:15 a.m. I dropped the paper and looked toward the mirror again. This time the car door was open. I didn't see myself anymore. I saw the empty driver's seat and the faint shape of something or someone standing beside it. No features, just a form, facing the gas station, facing me. I backed up and knocked over a small rack of gum and candy. Everything hit the floor. The echo was strange, off, like the sound didn't know how far it was supposed to travel. I turned and ran back into the hallway, half thinking I could go through the employee room, find a back door, anything. But when I opened the door again, the desk was gone, the mirror was gone. It was just a closet now, a broom, a mop, nothing else. I felt the walls, cold, painted concrete. This place wasn't what it had been when I walked in. I stood there, breathing in short bursts, and I realized I could hear music. Not from the store, from outside. A soft country song, low and scratchy, like it was coming from the car radio. I went back to the front, slowly. The wall where the door used to be was now gone. Not a doorway, just empty air, like someone had cut a piece of the building out and left it open to the night. Through it I saw my car, same song playing, only now it looked older, dustier, tires flattened, the paint fading, and the version of me inside was gone. I don't remember how I got back in the car. 1 minute I was inside the gas station, the next I was behind the wheel. The tank read full, the radio off. My phone screen dead, but warm in my palm. I pulled out without looking back. The sky was still black, the road ahead just as empty. I drove for hours in silence. My eyes stayed on the dotted lines, but part of me was watching for another sign, another glow in the distance. I told myself I wouldn't stop again. I just needed to reach the next town, any town. When the sun began to rise, it didn't feel like morning. It felt like the air was pretending. Around 7:30, I saw another gas station ahead. Same shape, same layout. The red neon sign flickering faintly. I almost kept driving, but my hands were already turning the wheel before I could stop them. I pulled in. A white pickup truck was parked at pump 2. No driver. The pump screen blinked. "Remove nozzle to begin." I stepped out and looked around. The chill of early morning should have felt crisp. It didn't. The air was stale. Inside, the store looked the same. Same shelves, same crooked ceiling tile in the corner. A cooler buzzed behind me, and faintly from overhead speakers, the same country song. I didn't know the lyrics, but I recognized the steel guitar intro. My footsteps felt heavier. I walked to the counter. The mirror behind the register was missing. In its place, a corkboard with old receipts pinned across it. One caught my eye. The name, mine. I reached for it and stopped. In the reflection on the glass cooler door behind me, I saw movement. Someone was standing outside. I turned. The white truck at pump 2 was gone. In its place, my car. Same dirt on the windshield, same hoodie in the passenger seat. I never opened the door. I just walked toward it. Every step felt like I'd already taken it before. When I sat down in the driver's seat, the radio came on by itself. That same song, halfway through now, and as I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw it again. The gas station, still glowing, still waiting, still exactly the same. I drove for hours that day, and every time I passed a station, I didn't stop. But part of me still wonders if I ever left that first one, or if I've just been circling the same stretch of highway ever since. To this day, I can't remember how I got home, or if I ever really did. Story 2. The detour wasn't on the map, but it knew my name. This happened to me and 2 friends back in 2016 during a late summer road trip that never should have happened. We were driving from upstate New York to a cabin in Vermont that belonged to one of their uncles, or at least that was the plan. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend, no phones, no service, just beers, river swimming, and pretending we weren't all slowly drifting apart. There were 3 of us, me, Grant, and Alexis. We'd known each other since middle school, used to be inseparable, but by then, things had changed. Grant had started working construction. Alexis was about to move to Oregon. I was between jobs, drifting. We hadn't all been in a car together for over a year. The first 2 hours of the drive were fine. Playlists, gas station snacks, the usual. The route took us through back roads that turned to 2-lane highways. Somewhere past Whitehall, Alexis missed a turn. The GPS rerouted. That's when it started. The map showed a winding detour, a series of small state routes we hadn't planned on taking. Grant started arguing that we should turn back and check the last sign, saying it didn't make sense for the route to go that far south. Alexis snapped that we were already late. I tried to stay out of it, half watching the fields blur by. But then I noticed something strange. The signs started getting vague. No route numbers, no town names. Just scenic view ahead or rest area 2 miles. But we never passed a rest area, never passed another car. After maybe 40 minutes of this, the sun was going down and the arguing got worse. Grant said we'd missed the cabin entirely. Alexis insisted we were fine. I offered to check the map, but my phone screen glitched and froze. Then it shut off. We finally pulled over on a gravel turnout, surrounded by dense trees. The silence hit hard, not the quiet of isolation, but a silence that felt staged, like the air was holding its breath. Grant got out and slammed the door. Alexis stayed behind the wheel, tapping her phone, pretending not to be frustrated. I stepped out slowly, stretching my legs. It should have felt refreshing, but it didn't. The forest didn't smell like forest. It didn't smell like anything. There was no wind, no birds, just quiet. Then the whispering started. At first, I thought it was Alexis talking low, but her mouth was closed. Grant was maybe 20 feet off in the trees, crouched down, tying his boot. I walked a few steps away from the car and heard it again. Not in front of me, not behind, but all around. A soft, breathy sound, not wind. Voices. They weren't saying sentences, just repeating something, like a rhythm, like a chant. Then I heard my name, once, then again. Daniel. It came from the trees, from nowhere. I turned and saw Grant standing now frozen, his eyes locked on the tree line behind me. I turned around and saw nothing, no movement, no animals, just trees. "Did you hear that?" I asked. He didn't answer. Alexis rolled down the window and said, "Guys, we need to go. Now." Her voice wasn't annoyed anymore. It was flat, measured. We got back in the car. As soon as the doors closed, it stopped. The whispering, the stillness, like it had never been there. Alexis started the car. The map app showed nothing now, just a blank grey grid and a blue arrow floating in nowhere. "Let's just follow the road," she said, "until we hit something real." I didn't say anything. Neither did Grant. We drove in silence. After 15 minutes of driving, we passed a broken-down barn on the left side of the road. It was small, sun-bleached, with a rusted roof and one wall partially collapsed inward. Next to it, a wooden fence curved along the road. A dead deer lay just past the bend, stiff, legs outstretched, flies circling. Nobody said anything about it. We just drove past. About 10 minutes later, we saw it again. Same barn, same fence, same deer. I sat up straighter. Alexis whispered, "We didn't turn around." Grant leaned forward from the back seat. "No, that's not possible. That's the same one. Look at the ribs." He didn't finish. We passed it. Again. Same barn, same fence, same deer. I looked at the odometer. The miles weren't changing, stuck at 241.6, like the car wasn't moving at all. Alexis hit the brakes and the car slid slightly on the gravel. She cursed and pulled a U-turn in the middle of the road. We drove back the way we came, faster this time. The trees looked identical. No markings, no signs. About 5 minutes in, I saw the barn again, but this time it was on the right side. "We're back," I said quietly. Alexis didn't respond. She just kept driving. Grant said, "Pull over." Just for a second. She didn't. I said, "Lex." She pulled over. The engine idled, then stopped. The silence returned, heavy, unfamiliar. We stepped out one at a time. Grant walked over to the fence. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a quarter, and scratched a long line into the wooden post, deep enough to see. He walked back to the car and didn't say anything. We drove forward. Same road, same trees, same barn, same deer, same scratch on the fence. We hadn't moved. Alexis started crying. Not loudly, just silent tears while she kept both hands on the wheel. Grant looked sick. We passed the deer again. This time its eyes were open. It must have been hours before we saw the clearing. There was no warning. One moment we were on the endless road. The next, the trees just stopped. Wide open field, no buildings, no deer, just grass and fog, and one narrow dirt trail that veered off the road like it had always been there. At the edge, a wooden sign stood crooked in the ground. White paint, red lettering. "Exit here, forget together." Alexis read it out loud, her voice barely audible. No one moved. Then Grant got out of the car. We watched him walk toward the sign. "Where are you going?" Alexis asked. He didn't answer. He turned around once and looked at us. He didn't look scared. He looked calm, maybe for the first time all day. Then he turned back, followed the dirt trail, and disappeared into the fog. We waited for an hour, maybe more. Eventually we drove on. The barn was gone, so was the deer. We made it to the cabin sometime after sunrise. Neither of us talked about what happened. We didn't mention Grant, and strangest of all, we didn't feel like we had to. It was like we'd always planned the trip this way. Just me and Alexis. The third sleeping bag sat untouched in the back. It wasn't until 2 weeks later, when I was going through my phone, that I found the photo. It was taken just before the trip. The three of us standing in front of Alexis's car, only the photo didn't make sense. She was on the left, I was in the middle, and Grant was on the right. But we weren't standing together. He was 10 feet away from us, smiling, and behind him the trees, and behind the trees, the sign, faded, barely legible, but still there. "Exit here, forget together." I've shown that photo to Alexis. She doesn't remember taking it. She doesn't remember him. But sometimes, when we talk, she'll pause and say, "It feels like we were missing someone." Then she'll laugh and change the subject. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. Story 3. She was driving behind me until she wasn't born yet. This happened to me 2 years ago, but the pieces go back a lot further. I was driving north on I-79 through Pennsylvania, heading to visit my dad. It was late, but not quite dark. That liminal kind of dusk where your headlights come on but don't help. I was alone. About 30 minutes outside of Meadville, I noticed a car behind me, close. Too close for how empty the highway was. I tapped the brakes lightly, not enough to be aggressive, just enough to signal. They didn't back off. I adjusted the rear view. It was a tan 2002 Saturn, same dull fender, same cracked left headlight, same mismatched rear panel, same car my sister used to drive, exactly the same. Thing is, that car was destroyed in 2004, and my sister Erin died the next year. The crash wasn't what killed her. She survived that. It was the sickness that came after, the hospital visits, the wrong diagnosis. By the time they figured out what it really was, she was already too weak. She passed in early 2005. I hadn't thought about that car in a long time, but now it was behind me, close enough that I could see the outline of a figure in the driver's seat. I changed lanes. The car didn't follow. When I passed the next exit, I pulled off, drove into a truck stop and parked at the edge of the lot. Got out, pretending to check my tires. My hands were shaking. I waited 5 minutes. 10. No sign of the Saturn. Back on the road, I kept thinking about it. Every old noise in my car started sounding louder. The music didn't help. I turned it off. When I got to my dad's, he was already asleep. I sat in the guest room for a while and tried to calm down. Eventually, I opened my laptop. I searched the old license plate number. I still remembered it. URN 54A1. Nothing. Then I checked the VIN. I had it saved from the insurance forms I'd helped my mum file after the crash. This time, something came up. The car had been registered again, 2 weeks earlier, under my name. I stared at the screen. I never filed that. I never even knew the car had been salvaged. There was no photo of the vehicle, just a renewal timestamp, a small Pennsylvania dot logo, and my full legal name. Under owner history, it listed Erin, then my name, then the year 2023. I closed the laptop. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't stay at my dad's more than a day. I told him I had work. I didn't. I just didn't want to be in that house. Not with the photos still up, the ones with her smile frozen in place, like time had chosen to stop only for her. I booked a room at a small roadside motel near Mercer. Old place. Carpet smelled like air freshener over mold. I didn't care. I needed quiet. Around 2 a.m., I woke up, not from a sound, just woke up. Room still dark, TV off, curtains drawn. I sat up and felt it immediately, that something was off. A presence. Not heavy, not loud, just there. I looked toward the door. A slip of paper was wedged under it. I got up and turned on the bedside lamp, walked slowly, crouched down and picked it up. It was a drawing, crayon, on hotel stationery, 3 figures, a man, a woman, and a child. At first I thought it was just some kid's doodle. Then I looked closer. The woman was tall, older. She had dark hair in a braid, Erin's hair, her smile too wide, the lines scribbled harder than the rest. The man, a boy really, was shorter, dressed in red, face simple, but in his hand was something, a matchbox car, a Saturn. Behind them, drawn in orange crayon, was a shape in flames. The Saturn. I looked at the bottom corner. Tiny writing, barely legible. It said, "Don't turn around." My stomach flipped. I stood up and checked the peephole. Nothing. I opened the door slowly. No one in the hall, just the low hum of a vending machine at the end. I stepped out, looked both ways, then back into the room. I don't know why I looked under the bed, but I did. Nothing. I left the light on the rest of the night. The next morning, I took the drawing to the front desk. The clerk looked maybe 19. Tired. He barely glanced at it before saying no, they didn't have any kids staying. No, they didn't have crayons. No one had asked for stationery. I asked if they had cameras. He shook his head. I left early, didn't check out, just drove, didn't even pick a destination. I just kept moving. It was supposed to be over. I told myself it was all in my head. The grief, the records, probably some data error. I convinced myself that the drawing had been a prank, some bored motel kid. I was halfway back to Pittsburgh. The sun was behind the trees now. Everything was glowing gold. I turned onto Route 19, heading south. Familiar highway, familiar silence. Then I saw the car again. A tan Saturn in the left lane. It crept up next to me slowly. My fingers gripped the steering wheel. I looked over. This time I could see her face. It wasn't Erin, but it was close. Younger, maybe 16, same eyes, different jawline. Her hair was longer, her hands small on the wheel. She looked at me, mouthed something. You turned back too soon. Then the Saturn accelerated, past me. Took the next turnoff without braking. Gone. I didn't follow, I just kept driving. By the time I made it home, the sun was down and the air felt too still. That night, I went into my storage boxes, dug through old school papers, yearbooks, photos. I found one from summer 2003. Erin standing next to the Saturn. I was maybe 12, standing just out of frame, my arm visible. A photo I remembered well. But in the background, barely visible, was a second version of the car. Same color. Same make, but this one was on fire. I blinked and looked again. It wasn't there, just an empty tree line. I don't know what I saw, but sometimes when I drive late at night, I check the mirrors too often. Not for cops, not for deer, but for her. For the version of her that never got to finish becoming who she was, and for the road that keeps bringing her back, whether I want it to or not.